How's it going, everybody? So, today's going to be a really short one, even by our standards, so bear with me. Quick weekend update. I finished watching Lost in Space. That was a really good show. I didn't know how they were going to do it, because the budgets today are better, and they go further with, like one episode of, the new Lost in Space remake probably cost an entire season's worth of the original show, but that's straight dollars to dollars. I mean, by today's in 19 whatever money, 60s or 70s money, that was it was probably about even, who knows. But anyway, so Lost in Space, I recommend it. I'm a fan of it. Check it out. I also finished what else did I finish? I finished one other one. I finished the first Monogatari series, which is, there's Orwazi or Baka, there's this, that, the other one. So the Monogatari series is basically one high school kid deals with apparitions. That's the simple version. The complex version is that each of these apparitions deal with emotional states, and it's basically each season is an adaptation of several books, or one book in particular. I forget. I couldn't tell you what lines up with what. I do know that if you were to try and line up the stories, it'll give you a giant headache. So on Amazon Prime, we have the first season, which is not the beginning of the story, but it's the first season. And it's I want to say a decade old. But then you have the one that's on Crunchyroll right now, and you're noticing it's the same characters for the most part. It's that the way I would describe it to you is, and this is why I can't watch the one on Crunchyroll until I find all the other seasons first. I watched the first story arc of the one on Crunchyroll, and it was good. It was really good, very hard to get into, because you can pick it up wherever you want, but it's going to be, to put it into Western terms, like watching the first season of House and then watching the 7th season of House. I mean, I'm sure you can follow what's happening, and it probably doesn't matter what happened in the meantime, but there are some pretty big things that you're going to have to be able to recognize, and I don't want to ruin my experience by just watching it flat out and then not knowing what all the references mean. It's not, to me that's not a good thing. So cheers for Crunchyroll getting one of the later seasons of the Monogatari seasons, but I'm really hoping someone starts getting the in-between ones, and I can't even tell you which ones come in between each other, because the name of the anime changes every goddamn time. It's Monogatari is the only key things, and just a pain in the neck, but it's really good, so I do recommend watching it. Okay, so I'm starting Bubblegum Crisis, and that's a late 90s anime based off of what I think was the late 80s manga or story, and fix that. So anyway, it's fun because I miss the art style of anime that I got involved with, the spiky hair, the three-tone hair, each character, each female has their own hairstyle. I swear to God, it could be a game online where you just show the male lead in a female-driven anime, and you guess which one it is and see how hard it is, because there are so many anime that have the female leads that they all look alike. So a couple of them would be easy, but I'm not talking about the Batos and the Gokus. I'm talking about the male lead in Bubblegum Crisis. I'm talking about the throw him in there between Tenchi Muyo and Darren from Sailor Moon, like not Tuxedo Mask, but Darren, and just see how many people just flat out recognize the differences. And that's enough on the weekend for now. So this week is Avengers Infinity War on Friday. So what I'm going to be doing is I am going to talk about the 3 phases that Marvel movies have had up till now. And I'm going to cap it off on Friday with a regular edition of Kayal Podcast Home and a Avengers reaction video. I'm not going to post any spoilers. I'm just going to have my reactions. And for the next few days, I'm going to be talking about the phases. So, the thing I'm going to talk to you about today, real quick, is the stuff that's the non-Marvel movies. And I'm going to talk about what they got right and what they got wrong. Because there's only a handful that got a lot wrong. But that's only by my standards. Like, I'm talking about, like there's some movies, like, creators and the people who like film, they love the really bad ones, and I just don't have it in me. So, off the top of my head, we're going to start with the Roger Corman Fantastic Four. That's the oldest one I can think of that's Marvel, and it was made just to be a thing that held on to the rights for the producer to have the Fantastic Four rights. Like, I've seen bits and pieces. I've yet to see the whole thing in its entirety, but the special effects were god-awful. I mean, they were brilliant for the budget that they were. I mean, if you told me, like, some student on the internet put it up as a YouTube video, it would be the greatest thing ever, but no. Not really. So, going forward, I think the one that came after that, I'm not entirely sure. I want to say the Dolph Lundgren Punisher. The Punisher is the the most consistent, like, B-movie like Marvel has. Because it's so simple. It's a guy who's an ex-cop. His family was killed by mobsters, so he goes and kills as many criminals as possible. And, like cheesy special effects aside, and not that great acting, and a couple other things that are working against it, not bad. It's a version of the Punisher. And, like, the stuff was gory, but it wasn't gory at like, I don't know how to describe it other than like good but not great. Going forward, Captain America, the guy that he didn't wear the Captain America suit that much. Red Skull, like, it was Red Skull for 5 minutes, then he got, like, plastic surgery. It's a largely forgettable movie, and it didn't have, like, the Captain America feel that, like, you know how you know you want something, but you don't know what it is? Like, that's something more that you wanted. When Chris Evans showed up, that's when you knew there was more to it. Like, I will give him credit. I think they had a couple of times the shield bounced off the walls and hit people, and I think that's how it, like, worked. So, let's see what else. Might as well get into it. The Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man 1, good. Pretty good. Like, it got Spider-Man. And I'm not counting the Spider-Man TV show. I mean, that, like, some of the old TV shows, like, I really can't, like, tell you, were that great. So, okay. So, the Spider-Man movies by Sam Raimi, one was good. it bypassed high school and went straight to the college years, and it wasn't Spider-Man in that it wasn't like it was an all shucks character that was kind of smart but not a genius, and he was always like pressed for time. Like, they got that part right. He always wanted to do more, but he couldn't. Doc Ock in 2 was pretty good. Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, great. That I didn't like that they went all armor plated for the Goblin, but that's what it is. That's the way they went with it. That's what you got. Then you have 3, and 3 was just a clusterfuck. So the one producer wanted Venom, and he wanted Gwen Stacy, even though Sam Raimi hates the symbiotes, and he really wanted Sandman, so they did both, and they kind of detracted from each other. And the way he did Sandman kind of pissed me off because like, I almost feel like Sam Raimi was putting himself in the character of Sandman. It was like, I did a really bad thing by making this movie, and I hope you can forgive me. It's like, so at the end of the movie, it's like, I do. And it wrapped up, like, the whole Uncle Ben thing that started in Volume 1, but, like, watch that fucking piano scene in Spider-Man 3 and tell me you don't hate it. I dare you. So, while we're at it, I might as well get into the Fox stuff. Fox had the rights to X-Men, and I want to say that was probably the most successful non-Marvel franchise, even though they pretty much got nothing right. I mean, they got, like, storylines, but like, they had like a couple good ones, and then they made The Last Stand X3, and then they followed that up with X-Men Origins Wolverine, and that was the low point. So everyone after that one was like, we got to make up for that shit. So they gave us the Wolverine, which, like, in continuity or not in continuity, it made up for X-Men Origins and The Last Stand. And then they gave us Days of Future Past, was like, hey, like, you can appreciate the Wolverine, but guess what? We're going to take it all back. Like, all those last two that you guys really hated, not anymore. So, now, I'm forgetting Blade, and Blade is the one that started everything. So, say what you will about it, like it was a Wesley Snipes action movie or what, but they took a character that didn't have that much going on, and they gave him a lot going on. So, and it predates Batman, it predates, like, when I say Batman, I say it predates Batman Begins, and then it predates the X-Men. So, like, don't forget that Blade started a lot of this, because it was the only thing that Fox people could measure, like, their success against. So they're like, oh, Blade did this, so we're only going to give people 1-year contracts, and we're only going to give people whatever. We're going to hand things off to this unknown director who's going to win the Oscar for The Usual Suspects, or be nominated, whatever it was. And then we're also going to like, put everybody on 1-year contracts, including Hugh Jackman, who becomes God's gift to everybody in film. And that's why X-Men 3 was so rushed, because they couldn't get past, like, they had a hard date that they had to meet to get the contracts done. So there's a couple of Lionsgate properties I'm going to talk about now that, like, these are the ones that aren't that great, but they might be good if you like them. I mean, Lionsgate had Punisher, which they did one good one on a cheap budget, where they gave most of the money to John Travolta and Rebecca Romijn. And then they had Punisher Warzone, which is iffy, because creators liked it because it was the most Punisher, but to me it was also the most emo Punisher, so that's not the one I like. And it completely poisoned the well on the Punisher Max run, because it took every Punisher Max character, threw them in there, made it PG-13, and they wonder why it didn't work. So now we have, let's see, now we have like things like Man-Thing, which I want to say debuted on the Sci-Fi Channel and was horrible. Like, horrible. Cheesy, like, it wanted to be Swamp Thing. And I'm not talking about Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, I'm talking about the John Carpenter B-movie Swamp Thing. That's what it wanted to be. And then you had, I want to say Lionsgate was also, but I'm not entirely sure. Lionsgate was also Daredevil and Elektra. And I'll give the guy credit. The director's cut of Daredevil was better than the one that everyone else saw, but that movie, for the source material they were adapting, it should have been a lot better than what it was. Should have been a lot better. So, Elektra, less said the better, because it took... Fucking potholes. Alright. It took a movie that wasn't that great, and it spun off from it, and... like, the action is forgettable, like, the characters are forgettable, it really makes you appreciate the Netflix stuff that's been going on the past couple of years. And what else? Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is one of those ones where you really you kind of appreciate Nick Cage in it, because Nick Cage was doing something that he really wanted to do, and then the second one hits and you realize there's a diminishing return for a lot of these movies, and they weren't so bad so much as they aren't what I would categorize as worthwhile. Like, if you paid money to see it in the theater, you kind of got gypped. And if you paid money to have it on DVD, I kind of ask you why. Like, are you that much of a Nick Cage fan? Because the guys that did Crank, which is a good movie in my opinion, did Ghost Rider 2, and it was just, it didn't work. Like you can only make Eastern Europe so fancy when you shoot it, and like the acting wasn't that great, and like the special effects were like really not that great. So all right, nothing else is springing to mind on the pre-Marvel or the non-Marvel movies, but this is what I'm telling you. Like, it was a mixed bag. Like, some movies were wholly not worth it, and like, it made me appreciate the Marvels much more. So that's why, like, there's no really bad Marvel movies. All right, peace.